hello, everyone. This is State Representative Kate Lipper-Garabedian. Thank you for joining me for another Conversations with Kate. Today, I'm very honored to be speaking with Molly Rice Goyette of the Coordinated Family and Community Engagement Grant recipient, the North Suburban Child and Family Resource Network, which is serving all 3 municipalities in my district, the 32nd Middlesex, but 8 towns in total. And so today we're going to talk about who Molly is, the work that the Family Resource Network is undertaking to support families across this region of the state, and what our vision is moving forward to help families and their children be the best they can be, birth to age 8 or so. So Molly, thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
It's lovely to get to meet you. As you know, I talked recently with someone you work closely with, Eileen Dern, with Melrose Wakefield, and obviously I also know Kathy very well, with whom you work at the network also.
Yes.
So maybe want to start just a little bit about, your professional background and how you've come to be the program director for the Family Resource Network here in this area.
Sure. So I grew up in New Jersey and ended up going to college, Hamilton College. And after that, I worked for a couple of years in Methuen at St. Anne's Home. And after that, decided I wanted to get a master's degree. So I went to Wheelock and I got a master's in both early childhood and elementary education. After that, I spent a couple of years in Atlanta and actually was a child care director of a large child care center.
Oh, what neighborhood?
It was outside of Atlanta, and I lived in Decatur.
Oh, yeah.
And I was the director of a kinder care down there.
Oh, wonderful. So that was my first job out of college, was teaching 7th grade in the Atlanta Public Schools. I lived not far from where I taught in the 4th Ward, and then I went to Emory for my first year of law school, so it was in Decatur.
Yes,
yeah.
It was many years ago.
Yes, it was.
Yes.
Okay.
So I spent a couple years there and just missed the Northeast.
Okay.
And I came back, and I ended up in a position at the Child Care Resource Center, which is a resource and referral agency. And there I did a lot of counseling and working with families on trying to find child care for them.
Okay.
Looking at quality indicators and what might work best for them. And I was there for about 7 years. And then I worked for the Watertown Public Schools, and I was a coordinator for their Community Partnership for Children program. And that was funded by at the time, Early Learning Services. Now it's actually part of the CFCE grant, but I worked there for a year. And then I went to the Wakefield Public Schools, and I have been in Wakefield now. This is my 20th year.
Okay.
And for about half that time, I was the program director for the Community Partnership for Children program. And we worked with child care providers on really trying to expand their capacity and improve their quality. And so that occurred for about 10 years. And then the grant actually changed and merged and became what is now called the Coordinated Family and Community Engagement Grant. We call it CFCE.
Right.
And so that my Community Partnership for Children actually was combined with a grant called the Massachusetts Family Network Grant, and that is where Kathy Harlow comes in.
Got it.
And so Kathy was the program manager for that program, and I was with the Community Partnership for Children. And the Department of Early Education and Care decided the program should merge. And so we became the CFCE.
Okay.
And we call ourselves the North Suburban Child and Family Resource Network, which is awfully long. So we now really have talked about ourselves, just to shorten it, Family Resource Network.
Right.
And we've been doing this for about 10 years. And so the Wakefield Public Schools is what we call the lead agent. We receive our funds from the Department of Early Education and Care, and then we subcontract with Melrose Wakefield Healthcare, and that is who Kathy Harlow is employed by. We work with Kathy, and we also work with Eileen Dern, who's the director of the Community Services program there. So between the Wakefield schools and Melrose Wakefield, we implement the goals of the grant together.
That's great. Well, it's nice to know a little bit about your own personal trajectory, because I'm sure that your perspectives working in different areas of the country, your degree work at Wheelock, all of that sort of plays a part in how you think about your current role, and you can really lean on that to some degree. I also like that there's a lot of coordination among different organizations to support the network, so that you can think holistically, because that's how we best serve families, is thinking about all the different needs and ways in which interests and challenges intersect. So maybe we could talk a bit about the Family Resource Network. I think a lot of folks are probably familiar with it in the area. I certainly occasionally get mailings. I shared with you that when Harrison, my oldest son now, was younger, I recall taking him to some different programming that was really lovely. But, maybe a little bit about the kinds of programs that you've been offering and then also how you've had to pivot during COVID to continue to serve families in the area. And also maybe at the outset, you mentioned you support 8 cities and towns now. Maybe let's share with everyone which ones those are.
Sure. So our 8 towns are Melrose, Stoneham, and Wakefield, Reading, North Reading, and Linfield, and Winchester. And just over the last few years, we were able to add the city of Malden as well.
Great.
So those are 8 communities, very diverse. Part of what we do is really bring our programs out to the communities. And so before, unfortunately, COVID, we were really able to have some wonderful partnerships and collaborations in each of those towns. And we would go and offer our programs in various places, whether it be in a public library or through a recreation department or through another collaborator. So we would be in their spaces. We also were at the Early Childhood Center here in Melrose. So mostly what we do is we try to offer programs to really help strengthen families and help them be their child's best first teacher. So we do a lot of educational playgroups that are centered around literacy. We also have playgroups that we have STEAM and stories, and we also have lots of different programs, mostly literacy based, but also for younger kids. So we have fun, cute names for everything. We try to have interesting things. We have STEAM and stories, and we have Itsy Bitsy Story Time. We have a wonderful, wonderful program called Hello Baby, Now What?
Okay.
And so that is for first-time parents. And sometimes we do get parents maybe that they're on their second child when they come. And it really is all about just giving peer support, but it's also run by a wonderful woman named Katie Barnes, who is a Melrosian as well.
Okay.
And Katie has a great background, and she works also for Eileen Dern as well. And so she really just kind of brings different topics to the group. They support each other. One of the things they do is they go around and just say highs and lows. What are the highs? What's going well for you right now? What are some things you're struggling with? And that will just bring out wonderful conversations, and they can help to support each other. Katie also, with her background, can talk about child development and what you can expect and what kind of things can happen and the supports and the resources that you might need. And these times when you're having early on, it's so tough, as we all know. For those of us that had kids, it's really hard with your first child, and you're not getting enough sleep, and there are concerns and worries. So that's been a wonderful group.
I appreciate you holding that one up, because during COVID early on, one of the things that personally, sort of drawing on my own experience and that I've shared publicly, is that I had pretty severe postpartum depression with my first son. And a lot of that feeling is feeling so isolated. And so thinking about parenting during a pandemic, when, initially, and maybe, over the course of the last couple of years, there have been real concerns about being around other people, being in places where you would congregate, and just thinking about young families and how they could access supports. And I've seen that many places were able to pivot and offer it virtually. I know you've been doing some of that as well. And for people listening, I created a resource that you can find online at tinyurl.com/KLG-COVID-PPD that identifies a number of perinatal and postpartum supports. But how would people also take a look at some of these programmings that you've mentioned? I know you've probably been doing some outside during the warmer months. You may have to pivot to being more virtual again. Maybe share a little bit about your thought process on that, and then where people would go to see the menu of things that you are leading on.
Sure. So we were able to pivot, and I'm so incredibly grateful and proud of our staff for being able to do that. We did choose Zoom, like many others. And so what we did is we took all of the playgroups and all of the programs that we were doing, and we converted them to an online Zoom play group, basically, or support group if it was Hello Baby. And it was a little tricky at first, but we were really able to do it. We have 2 staff members do it so they can be there for each other. We did a lot of training, a lot of resources that are out there in the world, which is wonderful because other programs were doing this as well. And we were really able to provide most of our programming online.
Were there any, obviously for young children, nothing can approximate real life play, but were there things that you saw that were particularly successful or effective at allowing them to in some way engage even through Zoom?
I think music is always one thing that brings everyone together, and movement.
Okay.
And I will say that our educators are all super fun and did lots of research and new songs and new movement, really trying to bring that interactive piece to them, which is hard when you're on Zoom.
Right.
And that really is one of the more important things that we do, is kind of modeling that social emotional learning and behavior with the kids. And now you're doing it on a screen. So we would try to do things that were interactive. We did show and tells, where the kids would be, called on, and they'd unmute themselves or try to, and they would get to talk, or songs where they would interact and they would get to give part of the song. If it's Old MacDonald, they could give an animal, or if it was about colors or shapes, they could go and find something in their house to bring and to show. So we really tried to make it as interactive as possible. Every playgroup has a book, which gets a little bit tricky, but we were able to do that successfully. And then a lot of songs that we would do the same song. So the Good Morning song is always the same one, and it would involve sign language, so the kids could learn it and do it with us. So they end up looking forward to it. They end up learning the new song, and they end up learning the sign language.
That's
so
nice.
some pretty incredible programming, and that really is all due to the Family Resource Network staff. And like I said, they did a fantastic job pivoting.
That's excellent to hear. Maybe we could talk a little bit about the future, the near term, maybe, since it's obviously we've now learned it's maybe futile to predict what things will be long term, but we're heading into the winter. We're seeing even today, some really staggering, sobering signs of a surge. And so I know you're mindful of that. And what are some ways in which you think you'll be able to continue to provide these supports, and any recommendations or thoughts for families as they're working to support their young children during this time?
Yeah, so we actually were able to, when we first had the lockdown, we did everything virtually. And then come the summer, we were able to do things outside. And we had always done outdoor programming in the summer, and so we've been able to continue that. And last year, we did programming throughout the whole entire year.
Wow.
And that includes the winter.
Okay.
The winter programming is certainly a little bit more interactive. For instance, we're not going to sit down on blankets and read stories. But we have something called Nature Explorers, which is wonderful. And we currently do that in Malden at Pine Banks, and also at Breakheart Reservation in Wakefield.
Great.
So we will certainly be continuing with those. And it's a walk, and we talk about nature. We do read a story. So there's literacy in that as well. But it's a wonderful opportunity to get exercise, to learn about nature, to have those social emotional learning. Kids get to interact with each other. And get some exercise and some fresh air. So that will continue. We also do programs that have more movement in them. So we have something called Music Makers, and another one called Movin' and Groovin'. And so those, of course, have lots of music and lots of movement in them, always a story to be read as well. So we will focus more on those programs for the winter. We do have those programs year round, but for the winter time, we will continue them. And we go out when it's pretty cold, I have to say, and the families are wonderful. They embrace it. They bundle up. They've got their snow pants and their hats and their gloves, and they're just very thankful to be able to do something. So I think it's made us all a little bit hardier, a little bit more willing to embrace the outdoors and the cold weather, which can be hard some days.
You're a bit of a New England transplant growing up in New Jersey. I'm definitely one from Virginia, but I think you have to have your passport stamped if you live here long enough to know that you'll be outside some portion of the winter, right?
And we will be. And honestly, the kids love it. We always kind of giggle and laugh a little bit because the parents, of course, and the instructors were all a little chilly. But the kids, they just love it, and it doesn't bother them one bit, and they're happy to be there and to be together. So that's
how would families find out, all the logistics and if there's pre-registration for anything? Where do they go? Is there a landing page? How do they find all this information?
So a couple of things. So I think one thing to highlight is definitely our website.
Okay.
And Katie Barnes was instrumental in getting that up and running, and the website's wonderful because it does tell you all about our programs, but it has many, many resources. And particularly during COVID, we tried to put curriculum up there, and
Great.
things that families can do at home. So
Excellent.
tons and tons of, we have pre-recorded story times. We have arts and crafts you can do, all types of resources. But then other resources about entering kindergarten, getting ready for preschool, postpartum depression,
Mhm.
pretty much anything and everything that could be a resource and a help for families to help strengthen them and make them feel supported. That's on our website. And so that's going to be nsfamilynetwork.org.
Okay.
So that's a great resource.
Excellent.
To know more about our programs and to actually be able to sign up for them, the best thing to do is to get onto our email list.
Okay.
And so we have a constant contact newsletter
Mhm.
that's created by one of our wonderful employees, Nicole Jacob. And so that comes out 2 times a week
Wow.
on Tuesdays and Fridays at 7 p.m.
Okay.
And it's a combination of all of the programs that are currently occurring in a particular week, but also resources as well. So we always want to have parent education resources, parent-child activities that they can do at home, and then self-care, which we really try to promote self-care for parents to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves, because it's
Absolutely.
tough to be a parent, and it's particularly tough these days with COVID. So
And can people sign up for those newsletters if they go to your website?
they can do
Yep.
that. And one really cool way is you can actually text Family Network
Okay.
to 22828.
Okay.
And then it will prompt you and it gives you back a link, and then you can sign up for the newsletter that way.
Wow. That's great. So for people who wanted to jot that down, it's NS as in North Shore, familynetwork.org. Or you can also, to sign up for the newsletter, text 22828 and you'll get some prompts to do that.
Exactly.
Very
Exactly.
user-friendly.
So we're trying to make it as user-friendly as possible. And then most of our programs right now, because of COVID, really are registered programs.
Right.
So we try to have about 12 kids in each class. Some of them are quite popular, so we encourage families to try to sign up on Fridays,
Mm-hmm.
and that will be for the following week. And we usually have, say, probably 2 outdoor programs right now each day, and then we will have a virtual one. Right now we have them 2 times a week. And then in January, we're going to have a new schedule,
Okay.
and we will have at least 1 outdoor program every day. And we will also have 1 virtual program every day. And we're thinking about coming indoors, but we're just not quite sure
Right.
now, unfortunately. We thought we were ready for that. And now with Omicron, we're not quite sure, but we have a vision that we're working on where families would register. We'd be in a very, very large room. Each family would be on their own blanket. Everyone would be masked. They would be asked to stay on their blanket, which would be socially distanced,
Mhm.
of course, from other people. And we would try to have a play group that way. So we are working on that. I'm not quite sure if that will occur or not. We'll have to see in the coming weeks. But that would be from January to March. And then come the spring, I suspect we'll just be outdoors and enjoy it as much as we can. And
Absolutely.
we always like to offer virtual because we know that there are families that are just not quite comfortable yet, or
Right.
might have other issues in their life that prevents them from being able to be with other people.
Yes. I mean, in the long term, having had the opportunity to be forced to do things virtually, which, is, no one wanted that. There will be some ways in which we can leverage that learning moving forward to better reach people. I'm just thinking, in my own experience, it could feel overwhelming to try to make an appointment to get, did I get the feeding done? Where am I? Was I disrupting the nap schedule? But to know that I could have logged in to on a day where being out and wasn't really feasible, I'm sure you'll all be able to do that even post-pandemic.
It actually is one of those silver linings,
Right.
to be honest. I think particularly for a program like Hello Baby for new moms,
Right.
we all know getting out of the house with a newborn baby that's 2 weeks old.
Yes.
Isn't it nice just to be able to have that support and know it's there,
Right.
and not have to do that? The same thing with just if it's cold out, that it's an option that we always have. And I think too, for parent education, we do a lot of parent ed workshops, and we always had trouble because a lot of people would sign up, but they wouldn't necessarily be able to make it there.
Mhm.
And certainly understandable. If you've been working all day and then at 7:30 at night thinking, gosh, I really like the topic that they're offering, I think that would be really helpful for me, but I just don't have the energy to go out. Or it's bedtime and you want
Right.
to put your children to bed. So that's one thing I think that we definitely will maintain, is offering those parent education workshops virtually. So yeah, there are a couple of silver linings. Yeah.
Well, Molly, this has been really lovely to get to talk with you. I'm glad to be able to spend some time raising up your work and the Family Resource Network as someone who's personally benefited from some of the things that you've put together. It's particularly lovely to reinforce the ways in which that this intersection of education and healthcare, supporting, families in our district and the region has been really successful. I love hearing about all the different ways you've pivoted during COVID to continue to offer rich opportunities to people. I think the website, again, nsfamilynetwork.org, is a wonderful resource for people to know about, including, as you note, some of it's just reading or enrichment activities you can do from your own home. And so I really encourage people to learn more if they don't already know about you and to be in touch if they have questions. So thank you so much for joining me for Conversations with Kate.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Great to see you and look forward to staying in touch.
Thank you.